Okay, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show. Welcome. We're joined by Don Irvine, Jackie Saxton, Marcus Alzona, and Mark Unker for Esquire. How's
Yay.
everyone doing
Happy
this week?
Friday, everybody.
Esquire, not in the state of Maryland, though.
That's
All right. Well,
Let's make that clear
Not in
to
the great
our
state of
friend
Maryland.
on the shore.
we have a lot of topics this week, so we're going to jump right into it. This week, we're going to start with everyone's favorite internet sensation recently, which is the Karen. So, what is a Karen, you may ask? Well, a lot of people, especially young teens on TikTok, would describe it as a white woman, most likely who supports Trump or is a registered Republican, who likes to complain about their lives and just about at everything on the internet. The kind of person who would say, I would like to speak to a manager, basically in any situation. So there's been a lot of Karening going around on the internet. So I wanted to get your guys' take on that.
Well, it's interesting. It's very, very specific. I mean, there are particular behaviors and there are incidents that have been filmed where people seem to be, how shall I say, abusing their white privilege, if that's a thing, and I guess that is. But it's much broader than that, and it seems to be something that can be applied, but it seems primarily or exclusively applied to white women.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Karen is a very common white woman name. I can't say no more than maybe two Karens, if that. I think it's an internet troll thing that really started. I think that people like to put labels on people, especially now. They like to find ways of kind of broadly clumping together white people, they meaning the far left liberals. And I was explaining to you guys before the show, I mean, there's people on TikTok who are starting fake Instagrams where they pretend to be, their fake accounts where they pretend to be white suburban women, basically mocking them for what soccer moms who are supporting Trump, drinking wine coolers with their friends and playing cards and not actually working. There's this stereotype that they're trying to mock on the internet, which is like, just like they don't want us to judge anyone for the way they're born, whether that be skin color, whatever. Apparently now it's not okay to be a white woman.
If you think about, and if you think about what the objection, understandable objection to blackface was, and continues to be, it's this notion that you can act in a quote humorous but stereotypical way to make fun of somebody. And then you kind of playing off this stereotype and having basically a laugh at it. So a lot of what you're describing, the hostility to quote white entitled women, really reflects a kind of, how shall I, white face, I guess. I can't call it. It's not blackface, obviously. It's white face, but it's hostility towards people based on a stereotype.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to claim it's all in the name of farce, but that's very one-sided, that it's only okay if it's against white people, because we're so overprivileged that, yeah, cool, make fun of us because we deserve it.
I don't know. What is real white privilege? Here's the thing. I've helped probably more than a dozen white folks get jobs. Where's their white privilege? In theory, I should be the one they should be helping me get a job.
That's the white privilege, is that we can go to Dwight.
Where is it?
It's actually, that's different. You've got that confused. That's Dwight privilege.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
pretty close.
It's a privilege to know me, and some people don't even deserve to know me.
Well,
Somebody who jumped in on this too is, Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary. She called the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. She says, she called her a derelict mayor and said that she should request some federal help because Chicago, just like New York, is having a little bit of a crime problem, a violence problem. So Lori Lightfoot sent a tweet out. She says, "Hey, Karen, watch your mouth."
So, go ahead.
it's gone viral.
I feel like references to people being Karens has been around a lot longer, and I feel like even I guess I've missed the more recent things where it's confined only to Republicans or conservatives or something. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, and that might be the case actually, um, of it being used this way. But I feel like there might have been some use of the term for the initial lockdowns.
Well,
I mean,
the Republican part is a newer addition, I think, more in the way of, and I think that started around the time before the Tulsa rally of and the whole thing with the woman with the dog, which I thought she was terrible, but it's more so surrounding the fact that what are other ways that we can knock people who are Trump supporters? What are small ways that we can just be aggressive towards Trump supporters in some feigned attempt at trying to pull support away from him? I don't know.
But stepping away from the political piece, it really underscores the problem or the weakness of this kind of identity politics, of identity, of characterizing people based on their identity, that they should think alike or they should act alike or they're likely. And it ends up kind of doing a 180 on what was the aspiration, has been the aspiration for several decades, of treating people based on the conduct of their character rather than what kind of superficial characteristics they have. And that's the identity politics of deciding that things are simply a function or a result of one's background. It leads down this particular road.
I agree 100%. But sticking to the topic of things going on social media, there was a major Twitter hack that went on this week. I was sitting at the table with my brother and his fiance, and she was actively scrolling through Twitter, and she's like, people are getting hacked right now. They're all tweeting about Bitcoin. So how much do you guys know about what went on there?
So those are verified users, right? I mean, that's one of the things, is you have to have the blue check mark. That was one of the things that happened there. And so these are Bill Gates,
Elon Musk, Obama was on there.
Joe Biden, these kind of people, some very prominent people with the blue check mark, the verified Twitter users. And so that someone had hacked in there and had basically said, I will, I'm going to do my part for America or whatever, send me $1,000 in Bitcoin and I'll send you $2,000 back. And here's a link. I don't know that, the FBI is investigating this, but they're really trying to figure out who's responsible for this. I mean, I've listened to a lot of things, and maybe Marcus has heard some more as well, in terms of who's responsible. Did an employee get paid off to get access to the controls that let someone, they'll let these hackers in there to do this? Was it somebody who just managed to find their way through the system and get there without the help and aid of employee or employees that had access to the controls that led to believe this? But one of the results of this too was just that everybody with a blue checkmark, every verified user, they shut them all down. They couldn't tweet until they figured this out. So for those of us that aren't blue checkmark, which I believe are basically all of us, we could still go ahead and tweet while the blue check marks were stuck in purgatory.
Well, here's the way I looked at the whole thing. What I thought was really interesting is, because everything somehow has to tie back to politics, are people looking at this and, well, they got Joe Biden and Obama, so clearly this is somebody who's working for the president. And at the same time, actually the way my brother described it was, which I thought was funny, these are all the idiots who didn't know how to use two-step authentication.
Well, I would be surprised if a lot of those counts didn't have two-factor, but who knows? Maybe that is the way they got in. But I don't think it's that. I think it's probably something
a little bit more sinister.
Broader. But also, I mean, this does show a vulnerability. I mean, it could be, yes, it could be some insider who has given access and enabled it, like actively to it. But usually, not usually, but it's quite often that it's just they maybe used that person's access to get access. So exploiting and like doing social engineering and exploiting the ability of this one person, or to get into his or her like administrative access, and then leaping it off from there. And there's a lot of, I feel like there's two I guess, concerns that come out of this. One, how easy it is, or how easy it would have been to do something more nefarious than put up a Bitcoin scam, or to try to get some money. And they got some money out of it, but it wasn't. It was really, when you think about it, like getting this amount of access is sort of insignificant to the potential damage it could have done with, what if, some of these specific users all of a sudden tweeted about a stock, or that, hey, we're going to go in and do this act, or, this, or we're going to start arresting people here, or or that the other side who's in power, they're about to arrest everyone, so we need to go and like take power, right? And like there's so many potential bad things that could have occurred, and so in some sense it was underused, is one way to look at it. The other thing I want to mention is that supposedly that out of this hack, it was also shown that, wow, look, Twitter has all these sort of shadow ban tools, stuff that says, oh, we're not really doing that. It's like, actually they have tools to do this, to sort of censor the users and censor non-woke thought or non-corporate woke thought.
And that raises, we've talked about this in the past, but it raises an interesting question of now Twitter has been a dominant platform, certainly has been dominant with, but on the other hand, among the social media platforms, obviously Facebook is in the category by itself, but on the other hand, we've seen things, competitive platforms come up. Is this something that's going to make people think twice about Twitter?
Well, people should go to Gab instead of Twitter, frankly. Gab doesn't censor.
I thought everybody's supposed to go to Parler.
Right.
Yeah, Parler too.
I don't think this is going to throw people off, because I feel like these social media platforms go through these kinds of hacks, maybe not to this extreme, gone through all the time, or there's always that thing that comes out. Someone hacked and got all of the passwords and data for X million number of users of Twitter or Facebook or insert social media platform here. I don't think that deters people, because it seems like it's something that happens once a year on one platform or another.
Here's the thing,
we've talked about this in the past, but it raises an interesting question of now Twitter is a.
What happened there?
What happened?
I feel like it's.
Dwight.
No, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and then you.
Or something.
But the prevailing theory right now seems to be Russia, from what I've read. Do you guys think it's Russia?
Something. Maybe is it Russia? Possibly, but something. Honest to God, I think it's probably more like the Chi-Coms, opposed to the.
Well, there you go. If I were the Chinese, I would make it look like it was the Russians. So that means if it looks like it's the Chinese, it must be the Russians. I mean, you would want to create a buffer.
Yeah, and here's the thing. At the end,
it probably was Marcus.
The way the lefty media likes to play things, it's always going to be Russia, Russia, Russia. Because then they're going to tie it to President Trump. President Trump was behind that whole hack thing because his friends, the Russian oligarchs, did that. That's what the New York Times is going to say, because we know they're so fair and balanced at the New York Times.
You know what? It's the same narrative that they're pushing, that I think that people are just numb to it at this point. They don't even listen to it. But
would we have paid as much attention, though, to this if it had occurred on Twitter, but it had not been the verified accounts? I think
it wouldn't have been as big of a splash, but it still would have made headlines if millions of people all of a sudden were tweeting the same thing.
How about Marcus? Guys, think about the people. I don't know how many people wound up, whether or not they really had an accurate count of how many people actually put their Bitcoin in there, hoping that they were going to double their Bitcoin investment.
First of all, it is 2020.
The thing is that because they're verified users, I think the people behind them. One of the things is that you can always find out with these things, whether or not it's stocks or whatever, is that you're always going to have a certain percentage of the population which will grab at it. They're very gullible, and they also tend to be a little bit greedy, and they'll go ahead and do this, and they'll take that flyer.
It comes down to the fool and their money, quite frankly.
But I would like to think the people who are smart enough to mine Bitcoin would be smart enough to see that this was a scam immediately.
You would hope so.
It strikes me as like too obvious of a scam. There's something else going on, and the different angles that you all have brought up, yes, are all different possibilities. or potentially possibilities, but it's just there's really just something else going on here that we really don't understand at this point.
Well, let's go back.
So
Let's
fishy.
pick up on the fact the effort to blame the Russians, and there has been a component to, I would say, American political debate to, do you put the focus on the Russians, and there's this whole effort
It's all
to
the Neil
blame.
McCarthyites is what it is, Mark.
But I think Marcus is onto something, that the tweets themselves were too obviously hacks, and that there was a wasted opportunity there with that much power to be able to say, look how easily we were able, I don't know it was easy, but look that we were able to get into all of these verified accounts. Think of what we could have done, especially if they chose one account and made a series of tweets that could be incredibly damaging.
It's one thing too when you have a Bill Gates or an Elon Musk, people who are extremely wealthy, and they're saying they might do this, you could possibly think that, oh, maybe they're being legitimate in terms of they want to give away some of their wealth or whatever. But if you look at Joe Biden isn't, his business right now is to raise money. It's not to give away money.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, but who's more likely to promise to give away money than Joe Biden?
That's true.
Right.
But here's the thing. First of all, are people, I hate to say it, people are morons if they see these tweets, and it's kind of like the same people that fall for their Nigerian king relative who's going to share his fortune with you. It's like,
And a lot of people do.
You deserve to lose your money at that point. A fool in their money. Honest to God, it's like, if it's too good to be true, it isn't true.
Yeah, but that happens all the time, and and this is not even new with the internet. There are people who've been preying on elderly people for many years, going door to door and scamming their money. So I don't know. I don't.
No,
I understand it's need to be vigilant, but I don't think it's. I don't blame the victim.
As younger, tech-savvy people, to train our elderly. I tell my grandparents all the time, this is a scam. Don't click on this. If you think it's fishy, text me. I'll tell you. It is our responsibility to take care of our elderly.
And I'm sure that, Marcus, you're familiar with, but there are some extremely adept fishing, spear fishing efforts that are undertaken. Don, you're a treasurer, so you'll get at precisely the right moment an email from the purported CEO, chairman, whatever, to the treasurer saying, we need to send some money right away to place. It coincides with a dinner or an event or a convention or something like that. It's very, very targeted, and it comes at precise, it knows the relationships within the organization, and it knows the particular time when things are vulnerable. I was on a call this week that has indicated that literally this month they've seen an uptick in the number of spearfishing attempts. So some of it is, yes, this is really kind of a blunt instrument, a whole bunch of accounts, but some of the victims of this are simply responding to some very, very skillful impersonations.
Well, I want to transition to something a little bit more concrete, particularly stores and the like. So we're starting to see a lot more retailers requiring masks. We've heard the president say he's not going to mandate nationwide that masks are going to be mandatory. He's leaving it up to the governors of individual states. But there are private businesses who are taking that into their own hands on, you need to wear a mask to come into our stores. So I'd like to get your take on that.
And they are, look, if it's a private business, free enterprise, if they say you got to wear a mask, then you got to wear a mask. Here's the thing. It is free enterprise. I think, was it somebody was telling me, Don, you were telling me in Utah, Lowe's does not mandate masks while Home Depot does. If I don't like to wear a mask, I'll go to Lowe's. I won't go to Home Depot because I don't want to wear a mask. And here's the thing. I'm not saying don't wear a mask. If you feel comfortable, wear a mask. I'll wear a mask when I go out into the supermarket, but I'm not going to wear a mask in my car. I'm not going to, and I just walk when I'm going out for a run. I'm not going to put a mask on for that.
Well, here's my take on this. That's really bugging me is if you're going to go through the effort of wearing a mask, wear it correctly. Because I can't tell you the number of times, in New Jersey where I am now, it's mandated. You have to wear them outside. You have to wear them inside. But the number of people at this point who just they have it under their nose, not going to do anything. It's not a chin cover. It's a face cover, nose and mouth. If you're going to wear it, wear it correctly. Otherwise, don't wear it incorrectly and then complain when you get a positive test. And I want to go into testing more later because I had an interesting conversation with my
And
dad.
it's like this, look at a ninja. You haven't seen a ninja get COVID, Put the mask on like a ninja would.
And how many ninjas have been tested? Where's
Right?
that?
I would like to
Japan.
see the
Japan.
data?
on that.
Japan. Japan.
That's how I'm moving. If all this if Biden wins and the country goes to hell, I'm moving to Tokyo.
But you're right. I mean, in general, Dwight, you're right. The thing is that this is an individual responsibility. I mean, Jackie too, if you're going to wear the mask, wear it properly. Don't, if they say wear a face covering, wear the face covering properly. Just go ahead and follow the rules. If you don't want to shop there, then don't shop there because of that. I mean, in a lot of the stores, what part of the thing that they're saying too is that, look, if you don't feel like wearing a mask, shop online or do the curbside pickup. We still make that available to do. Now, when it comes to certain technology products, I think Dwight would probably agree, maybe Marcus too, is that there are sometimes you want to be in the store and you want to actually see the product a little bit up close and kind of touch it a little bit. So if you want to do that, then be ready to wear a mask, and do that. I mean, I love the Apple stores, the environment and just the fun that it is and all the things that happen in there. Yeah, I would easily wear a mask so I could go around and look at the Apple products.
Are they open now? Are the Apple stores open?
Some of them are, but
Have you guys
there
seen
been
the
some
photo that
closings.
circulated there's a Target where they set up a station with a mirror where you can try on the different masks to see how you like them. Let's think about that one for a second.
You're trying on masks at
and a lot of businesses sell the masks. I think it was like Target or something like that. Like if you
Yeah,
don't wear a
package
mask,
so you're not
they'll sell you one
putting
like
it on your germ-used face.
And also, here's one
Put
that
it back.
what I think is real retailers like Micro Center, they will give you a mask. If you don't have a mask, they'll give you a mask when you go there.
But this is something else. This is
Recycle
what you're
them.
saying.
No, they
try
don't
the
recycle
mask
them.
on. If you don't like it, put it back for someone else to put on.
That's
Like
stupid.
that.
That is like the dumbest thing I've heard.
I thought that was
people do.
hilarious.
so I wear a mask. I wear a mask in two different ways depending upon the situation here. So when I go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning on the weekdays, I, along with most of the others that use the cardio equipment, we have it below our nose so we can breathe. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, the gym people, the one guy on the person usually checking in, doesn't tell us to put it over because their main thing is that they're just worried about the health department coming in and citing them. If I go back in the afternoon, which I do several times a week, I wear a paper mask and I will put it over because there is a higher likelihood that they will get a drop-in visit maybe by the health department. They are much more vigilant. They actually go around at least once an hour to check everybody to see how they're doing on that. And I can live with that because I'm in the gym. The second time I'm in the gym about half as long as I am the first part of the time.
So you're counting on the fact that Montgomery County employees don't work at 5 o'clock in the morning unless they're police or fire.
Mark,
And the
But
weekends.
Don, I don't blame you.
Or they've
because
heard
I read an
online about
article
something.
today
Mark,
about
they're government employees.
China.
They don't get to the office till around 9 o'clock.
Well, I read an article today about 2 students in China. I can't remember if they just said that they were in the hospital or they actually died because they were all forced to wear masks during gym class, and they couldn't breathe, and they died. And out.
And when I visit, what's happened here, the result of COVID here in terms of the effect on the gym has been that there are very few patrons that are showing up, very few customers in the gym at any one time. So go up at 5 o'clock in the morning, on the average day, maybe 10 or 12 of us. When I went back yesterday afternoon, I think there were 4 people in the gym, at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, it was a total ghost town. So if you put the mask below your nose, to me, I thought that the risk was really low considering how spaced out we were and how few people were in there. My only concern in there would be for the gyms is just, what kind of air filtration system do they have going on indoors? We know if you get on an airplane, they have these HEPA filters and they're very highly efficient, but we don't know what they are in a lot of other places. And we know that there are businesses and office buildings and things like that that are looking at their filtration systems as they get prepared to bring people back to work for air conditioning and things like that during the summer, make sure that they've got the best system they can possibly have, and to protect the workers as much as they can.
Remember, Legionnaire's disease spread
So
from the AC
what,
units.
one of the COVID, I'm going to put Marcus on the spot here. So one of the big controversies here in both in Maryland and Montgomery County is this question as to whether or not the public schools should reopen in person or whether or not they should switch to a all virtual, all online mode. And the preliminary plan that was the set of recommendations from the school system has come up with a kind of on-off partial sort of a hybrid with a lot of online instruction, but some in-school instruction. There was some discussion of maybe they ought to just have the elementary school in person and then the upper grades online. And I gather that's kind of been shoved to the side. At the same time, this week, the teachers union, the Maryland State Education Association and the Baltimore Teacher Association and others wrote a letter saying they want basically all online. They want to do this all with cyber. Now, the reason I'm picking on you, Marcus, is both as a parent and, if I can mention it, also the spouse of a teacher. Where do you come out on all of this?
So that's I've had discussions about this and obviously looked about it both as a parent and as a spouse of somebody, from different perspectives, would be being put in the sort of the front line on this. If using that one side was phrasing. So yeah, the Montgomery County has decided to, if I recall the details, it's all online initially, but basically phasing in, starting with the youngest students first. So, and they'll phase in for Monday and Tuesday, half the class will be attending in person. Wednesday, I guess they'll be scrubbing everything down before Dawn gets in and works out at 5 a.m. But, they'll be scrubbing things down during the actual daytime. And then Thursday and Friday, they'll have the other half. And that is freaking out a number of teachers. I mean, a lot. I mean, I think we've discussed before, there was a survey earlier that 20% of teachers would just be like, oh, I don't want to go back to the classroom until they figure out COVID. So that's
actually the Montgomery County did this. Part of the plan is they did a survey where parents tended to expect to send their kids back to school, almost 50%, although about a third said they weren't sure. 20% said they were going to keep them home. But the flip side was the same poll for teachers found that basically was only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 wanted to go back to school.
Right.
Well,
I mean, they all sort of recognize that it's not it's not educationally sound what's going on. Like, they know that the students are not getting that experience. However, I want to say that parent poll, by the way, there wasn't. It's like, well, choose an option: online only or partially online, or there was no back to school full time. They didn't actually give that as an option, even though that's probably the most obvious option of if you're trying to gauge what the parents want. So it's partially a push pull. I mean, they didn't give all the options there. And they can say, well, it's not an option to come in full time, but no, it is an option. Europe did it. There's many. There's been multiple studies showing that actually the infection between kids is minimal, and the effect on kids tends to be minimal, with exceptions. But if you're looking at a population, if you look at the actual statistics, and I believe the White House press secretary got unfairly in trouble about it by saying, well, if you look at this, essentially, if you look at the science is on the side, at least what we know right now, the science is on the side of reopening schools. The American Pediatric Association, I believe, said in person is actually vital for many different reasons. They backed away a little bit from that because I'm sure the woke crowd came against them. But that's one of the problems here. And that I feel also that the teachers, given that the teacher population skews a certain direction politically, they've been hyped up about a lot of the articles. They're saying, oh no, if you're opening up at all, there's all these risks, and you have that they're insurmountable risks. Of course, there's definitely risks.
Yeah,
but
here
that it's so that's the
thing no
problem.
one's really talking about, Marcus.
They're all very worried about it, and
Yeah.
that's reflected in the post.
Here's the thing: these teachers really don't want to work. How about we do this? Let's cut their salaries.
No, they don't. It's not. That's not it at all.
Something, Marcus,
It's not
these
it at all
teachers,
that they don't want to work. It is
they're lazy, they're
verifiably
unions,
thing. No, they are verifiably. You're conflating the teachers with the head of the teachers unions.
They're the same people.
That's a mistake.
They all vote for the head of the teachers union, Marcus.
I would more like.
No, they don't. Most of them don't vote for any of the head of the
I would
teachers
like
unions.
Oh,
to see
okay.
a comparison
They
of
don't
the
care.
teacher surveys.
These unions are the problem, frankly, and I think why don't we? Everyone wants to talk about this and that. But let's cut their salaries because they're not working nearly as hard as they were if they were in class. Frankly, I think teachers are overpaid to begin with to brainwash children. Because I mean, come on, let's be honest. Are these teachers really teaching our kids? I think this might be a good opportunity for us to try some homeschooling and do some deprogramming, which I believe there was
I disagree with you there, Dwight. I mean, one, because I think that socialization, especially in younger children, is super important. But also, and I've publicly said this before, and I'm sure I'll be unpopular amongst those who are very into sports. I don't understand why we pay millions and millions and millions of dollars to professional athletes, and quite frankly, Dwight, teachers get paid like crap.
Well, not in Montgomery County. Montgomery County, they get paid fairly well. They're probably the best paid in the country.
I think in general, as a country as a whole, if there's more incentive for people to become teachers and educators, we would get better educators who are more interested in teaching facts and not politics. But I to Marcus's point, I would like to see how many of the teachers that answered online, they want to stay online, where they skew age-wise. Because I don't think they're as worried about the kids getting the disease as they are as the kids bringing the disease and spreading it to the teachers, to the parents. I think that's where the real fear is. And we have a family friend who is a middle school history teacher who was over this past week, and we had a long conversation about this. And he is very much a liberal, and he posted this viral post that's been going around Facebook of like, these are the questions we have for Betsy DeVos. If a kid gets sick, do they quarantine the whole class? Do they quarantine the parent? It's all these questions regarding that. But despite all that, he wants to go back into person because they've been trying to teach online. And you know what? He said there are days that we're lucky if 5 kids show up, and even if they're online, you don't know that they're paying attention. They could be on their phone. You just don't know. And teachers, technically, they definitely don't become teachers for the pay. They come because they care about the future of these students for the most part. And I think that most teachers would agree that being back in person is what's best for the development of their students, which is really what they want. They're certainly not there soaking up a paycheck for very little work that makes it worth it. I mean, I can only babysit in small spurts of time because I wouldn't want to deal with for 8 hours a day a classroom full of 20 brats. Sorry.
And I think Marcus has got a good point too. I mean, in terms of this kind of this wokeness, this whole feeling that the teachers themselves have been convinced, by the liberal media and others, in the teachers unions that are more of that liberal mindset that, returning to work is an extreme danger for you. So, and we want all of you to be unified on this. But, part of the thing that always gets me about this, no matter which group of people we're talking about, teachers or whatever, is just that how much influence the media and other politicians, liberal politicians, have had in this discussion. To me, basically saying that COVID, if COVID is basically a death sentence, is kind of almost that's how they've equivocated it. So that they've scared people to believing that testing positive to COVID could you're probably going to be dying. And if you're older, you're probably more likely to die. And we know that when you look at the statistics, that's not
true.
And so we have this is a virus. We're going to have to live with this virus. Hopefully we'll get some kind of a shot or vaccine or something that will mitigate it. But once again, as we've talked about before, the politicians and those others that keep trying to tell us or trying to intimate that we're going to go to zero, but that's a fallacy. I mean, some days we'll have 0 deaths, other days we'll have 10 deaths or whatever.
And something, we still have deaths of the flu and regular, everyday non-COVID deaths. The fact they've turned this into a boogeyman. The left and the media have turned this into a political weapon to use against the president's re-elect campaign. I mean, you've
But
already...
I wanna talk about testing for a second. Because I had a really interesting conversation with my dad about this morning. Is that, you know, we keep seeing this number of positive cases rises to 100,000, 500,000, whatever it is. But there are multiple people out there who are getting tested multiple times, and the test might come back positive more than once. Or, you know, you're a nurse, you get tested once a week. And, you know, these numbers are not accurate. They're counting how many positive tests, not, you know, Bobby in Florida tested positive 3 times. They're not taking away 2 of those positive tests, the number. There's a lot of things that are conflating those numbers. And then again, this is one testimonial report that I read from one nurse, doesn't mean it's absolutely the case, who said that just out of curiosity, they've taken swabs before that they never swabbed anybody's nose. They took the swab, put it in the tube, and it came back positive twice. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit scary.
I wanted to underscore that. I think I've never understood the percentage positivity number. I mean, I understand what it purports, but I've never understood the significance, since it seems to be a factor of one hand of how many people you test. As you increase the number of tests, then presumably the number of positives should go down. But the bottom line is how many people are testing positive. And often, as we've talked about before, but there's some frustration that the numbers don't reflect the number of people who no longer have the disease. So
Is that
the
some of
assumption,
the reason why the administration is having the COVID data now to be reported to Health and Human Services instead of going to the CDC? That whole controversy. I don't know if you've heard about that. That they feel like the CDC is not, perhaps it's not reflecting the current metrics of the virus nationally.
well, the issue is, I mean, there's a reason why we don't show people who had it but have gotten over it, because the protocol is you have to be tested a couple of times. And at least in the very beginning, we really weren't prepared to make assumptions as to how long it would take before somebody was recovered. Now, I think we have more data because we've got people who are gotten over. So there's, I assume, to be a bell curve of somewhere between maybe 4 days, peaking at 14 days, and then dropping off. That there are some assumptions that we can make of, you know, how many days into the disease did somebody test positive, and then how many days are they likely to have it, and then assume that somebody, I think if they tested positive May 31st, we can go out on a limb that they no longer have the disease.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
And
the numbers are not
inaccurate. We've got a lot of other topics. Let's move on to about one of our favorite topics, AOC. She is blaming unemployment for the high rise in crime, but none of the defund police or the riots.
I'm calling this the Jean Valjean fallacy, just because I'm a huge Broadway nerd. Is this guy is just trying to feed his poor family, so he's going out and stealing a loaf of bread.
No, he was stealing Nike tennis shoes, though.
I like that analogy. That's good.
I mean, she's ridiculous. Everything that comes out of her mouth is insane. And I don't understand why she gets so much support. I really don't. But the crime is coming from the opportunists and the rioters, and that's that on that.
And here's the thing: and AOC and the squad, and they're all part. They're I'm going to say it. They are co-conspirators. They're at least. Basically they are giving aid and comfort to these lawbreakers when they say, they're hoarding their money because they don't know when their next paycheck's coming, so they got to go steal a loaf of bread, or they got to go, there's food pantries, for crying out loud. Not to be the guy that's cold-hearted, but there's food pantries.
Well, but Dwight, it reflects a fundamentally kind of a Marxist orientation.
Yes.
That looks to sort of economic determinism as a way of explaining how people behave. And it does not reflect the variations of character. So it's sort of an insult on poor people to say that poor people are going to go out and commit crimes, when the overwhelming majority of people who are similarly situated to the person she's describing don't do anything like that. And yet there's, again, with a Marxist orientation, a kind of class conflict worldview, she's prepared to explain that away.
Well, I don't know. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this one because it's
Oh, we
ridiculous.
spent way too much on COVID, though.
I want to talk about something that's more positive, which was the backfire that came from them trying to cancel Goya. I think that's hilarious. I think that's great. I mean, there's signs in stores now saying that due to overwhelming demand, people are limited to 2 products per person.
And now, where are you? Are you in New Jersey?
I am in New Jersey.
So you're in New Jersey, which is a what color state?
Oh, it's a deep blue state.
Deep blue state. And yet what's going on?
It's crazy. Yeah, over demand. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. It's people are stocking up. Look at you, Marcus.
That's my checkout yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, I had a friend of mine on Facebook. I mean, a guy that when I used to be in DC, I'd see him occasionally at meetings. He went out and he bought one of everything that had Goya on it, and it cost him $198, and then he's going to donate it to a food pantry.
There you go.
That's
The problem is there's only so many beans that you can eat.
and I'm curious, Don, because I mean, again, a little bit separate. I mean, I was in Penn Station once, and there was a homeless man who came up to me and said, can you get me something to eat? I said, I got 2 jumbo slices of pizza. I'm really not going to eat both. Do you want the second slice? He said, I don't like pizza, and he walked away from me.
I had the
And I'm
same
wondering
thing
if there
happen
will
to
be
me.
people, liberals, who are down on their luck, who show up to the food pantry asking for food, and here's Goya rice and beans, and they say, I'm not eating that, and leave.
I mean, Jackie, I had the same experience in 1995 at the fireworks display. We had a few friends. We had pizza. We had leftover pizza. My friend Jeff goes, "Oh, let's just give it to the first homeless person. First person we see." They're digging in the trash can over on Connecticut Avenue, over by the old DC 101. Okay, we ask, "Hey, would you like this pizza?" You know, it's a whole pizza, and the person, "Well, I had pizza earlier today." I mean. Then
listen.
No.
People are entitled to have food preferences.
It gets better.
No, I don't. Wait a second, Dwight. I don't expect that somebody. People. This is a free country. This is America.
This person was digging through a trash
I understand that, but that's the whole beauty of our society of choice. She figured that they could come up with something better than your pizza.
And it gets better.
Trash.
McDonald's or looking for something.
And I know it's inconceivable. Dwight thinks that there's a food pyramid. It's called the Dwight Patel food
But Mark,
pyramid.
it gets better, and I want to know how
it gets better.
At the high watermark of the food pyramid for Dwight is pizza.
But we're at Farragut Square, and we see another homeless person. So this time, Bruce goes over and goes, "Hey, we got this pizza. This person's homeless, and they go, "What kind of pizza is it?" So he shows them, "Oh, I don't like that kind." And I'm like, "Really? You're begging for food? We're offering you food." And then it's like,
that's why I will never give money to a homeless person. I will buy them a meal.
Oh no, never again.
But here's the thing: your disrespect. People want to earn their own keep,
but
right?
My
they don't want handouts from you, Dwight.
They had a sign: "Haven't eaten in 4 days."
They wanted to earn it, and you wanted to give them pizza, and I know it's hard to believe that people don't want pizza.
And then we get closer to this before 9/11, so they didn't. You didn't have to go through metal detectors and all that stuff. So we get close to the mall. We see another person. This person goes. Well, this person basically goes and says, "I'm kind of tired of pizza."
Exactly.
Then we
learned a valuable lesson that day. Not everybody likes pizza.
Exactly.
And my friend Cynthia was holding on to the pizza. So we're done. We're going back. There's long lines. By the way, there's long lines to get into the metro. So we finally see this lady. She's sitting there, and Cynthia goes, "Would you like this pizza?" And she said, "Why, yes, thank you very much." the moral of the story: beggars can be choosers.
Yeah,
Right.
isn't America great?
I know what a country,
It's
as
America
Yakov
great,
Smirnoff would
right?
say.
I
All right.
What
do want
a
to say the
country.
Goya thing though. We should all be praising the CEO because not only did he praise President Trump and thank him for things, but he didn't back down under the criticism. He didn't buckle. This is also one of my pet peeves about corporate heads, CEOs, presidents, whatever, is that they may take a position that is politically unpopular at first, but at the first sign of liberal, backlash, they buckle. They just cave to the other side. So, congratulations to this guy. I mean, and this guy, I mean, this is a privately held company. This is a generational thing. He deserves praise. I don't even know if I've ever eaten or purchased a Goya product in my life, but
Their adobo seasoning is on point.
that's what I heard. I heard it was incredible. So we may have to look into that.
Maybe
one of the
things goes.
One of the complaints I heard of part of this whole Goya is somebody of a more woke persuasion commented, sent this to me, was a complaint that the president had violated the federal ethics laws.
Oh, but
and the issue is that an employee shall not use or permit the use of government position or title for any associated with his public office to endorse any product or enterprise.
Does that apply to Nancy Pelosi?
So, well, that's an interesting question. So the thing is you've got this first free speech issue, First Amendment issue of if you can call for a boycott, that's okay. But if you're opposed to the boycott, that's an ethics violation.
Right.
I said free speech.
Yeah.
And also remember Nancy Pelosi
look,
endorsed.
I mean, in the end, it's not like he did a commercial for Goya and said, "Do this." I mean, that's one thing. I mean, he displays it on the Resolute desk or whatever, and has his daughter's holding a can of Goya. I mean, probably not, maybe not the smartest thing, if you're dealing with the ethics rules potentially. But I think you're right. I mean, this is a free. If the left has called for a boycott, why not answer that back? And he didn't get paid to do an advertisement or commercial. So
I think it'd be hilarious if they play the next Trump campaign ad and said at the end where it says, "I'm President Trump and I support this."
Yes.
I'm Goya. This message by Goya.
Hey, look,
I'm President Trump, and I approve this dinner.
I do want to go to one subject here, and then we can go on to we still have time, because I do want to get the feeling of the panel here, which is this whole Bari Weiss situation with the New York Times. Last week we talked about the letter in Harper's signed by Noam Chomsky, and Bari Weiss was a signatory, J.K. Rowling, and basically decrying the left for what they were doing with the cancel culture. So here we come. Basically, a week later, Bari Weiss writes a scathing, scorching. She torches the New York Times in a resignation letter, talking about being bullied. That she was she felt honored and excited when she joined the New York Times 3 years ago. She thought they were looking for a diversity of opinion, things that were not normally part of the opinion page at the New York Times. Lots of different kinds of writers and things like this. But instead, she was called a Nazi. She was called a racist. She was criticized if she was writing about Jewish issues and things like that. And basically, in essence, I think she really felt that she was forced out of this. And I want to just say this, and then the second part of this is that I saw this incredible interview with Harris Faulkner and Jill Abramson, the former executive editor of the New York Times, the next day, who asked her about this whole thing. And, Jill Abramson, these people are incredible. What an apologist for the New York Times. She did everything she could to say, well, there's no there's no liberal culture there. The people there at the Times that are they're centrists and all of this stuff. What is the deal? From on this issue about this? What's with the New York Times?
What struck me when I read that, and I just looked it up to make sure I got the quote right, is that, and Bari Weiss said in her resignation letter, "And I certainly can't square how you and other Times leaders have stood by while simultaneously praising me in private for my courage. Showing up for work as a centrist at an American newspaper should not require bravery."
But here-
There's a key word in that which the me underscore, because Don, you mentioned she's not describing herself as a conservative. She's describing herself as a centrist, and she's not a quote conservative at all. And yet, this is how she's being treated in the
She's probably
corporate
a
culture
Biden
of the New York
supporter,
Times.
too.
But it's almost like that idea of you have to, your two friends break up and you have to pick a side. You can't be friends with both of us. You have to pick a side. I mean, it's ridiculous. Is you're damned if you have an opinion. You're damned if you don't have an opinion. Or,
Here's the
one
thing,
or
this
another.
this goes
Not
to a
fair.
long time culture at the New York Times of intolerance. This is not the first time. I mean, remember our friend Jason with a Y. I forget his last name. He made up an article. Did he? I mean, how long did it?
Jason Blair.
Yeah, it took him a while to get rid of him. While this woman, she's forced
Once
to
they
resign.
found out about it, they did act pretty quickly.
But I mean,
It took them a while to find out, but,
no, but
yeah.
I mean, people have been saying stuff about that for a while, though. Prior to that, it wasn't like they found out and they got rid of. People were saying, "Well, this guy, his facts don't really match up," and stuff like that. It's kind of like with Elizabeth Warren when she applied for that job at Harvard as a Native American. Nobody caught on to that, and she kept her job. But my point is this is just a long-running thing at the New York Times of intolerance of any views differing from the extreme left-wing worldview they have. I mean,
So let me throw this out at you too while you're talking about that, Dwight, which is also part of this thing. Is that one of the things that Jill Abramson mentioned was that, except for Weiss, a couple other people lost their jobs recently, including James Bennett, who was the editorial opinion editor.
Yeah.
Now, why did he lose his job? He resigned really under pressure after they ran an op-ed piece by Tom Cotton, Republican senator, right?
Yeah.
And so Jill Abramson did not mention the context of why Bennett wasn't there. She praised him to the hilt, but she didn't mention what happened there. Is that his department, they ran this op-ed, they got so much flack that Bennett felt no other choice but to resign, and his deputy was reassigned.
Yeah, and that's the problems with the New York Times. The Washington Post has that same problem. It's not just
But let's be clear, though. We're talking about the editorial page of the New York Times, and so candidly, if they want to do what they want to do, they can do it. I think she was mistaken. She had been an editorial writer, as I recall, at the Wall Street Journal, and I don't think anyone in their right mind should go from that page to the New York Times, but sometimes people make mistakes. They make career mistakes. That's okay.
We can question her judgment.
Sorry?
I said we can question her judgment on that one.
Yes, I appreciate it. If we could digress, I can talk about my personal interaction with the Wall Street Journal editorial page.
New York
it's
Times, you mean, not Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. No, the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. Actually, I'll share it. I used to petition, and I was a precinct chair in New York, and one of the households that had the most Republicans was the editorial page editor, Bob Bartley of the Wall Street Journal. And I used to love to go there because it was his wife and his 3 daughters, and I could knock out 5 signatures all at once. But I would go there. This is where Dwight will appreciate it. I think I was going with Giuliani. This is in the 90s, and Bob looked at that petition with Rudy Giuliani on, and he goes, "No, I'm not voting for that. I'm not signing to get that Rockefeller liberal on the ballot." So I must say I struck out with that particular house. But that's the difference. That's the difference. Bob, I knew him. We went to the same church together. But that's the difference between the editorial page of the Journal and the New York Times.
You know what's funny?
On that note, though, Dwight, I know you want to step in. We do need to move into final thoughts.
Really don't, but we can.
Okay, well, all right. Do you want to go first? Would that make you feel better?
No. I got something really good.
Is it quick?
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk quickly about the Redskins scandal recently. Where they're saying, "Oh, this is," but they're trying to pin it all on Dan Snyder. But one of the things people don't seem to remember is this has been going on a long time with the Redskins, even back when uber liberal Jack Kent Cooke owned the Redskins. There was a reporter who mentioned that as well. It's been and now all of a sudden, a lot of these DC Redskins fans, are we allowed to still say Redskins, by the way?
For now, they haven't picked a new name.
Okay.
Look, we're all for the true Washingtonians will always be the Redskins.
Exactly. And here's the thing. They're saying how now they're trying to take the team away from Dan Snyder. They're blaming Dan Snyder for the way the franchise has been doing. Never mind the fact that he's actually opened up his checkbook. He has bought some of the best players he could, but the fact that the players are the real problem. I don't even think it's really the coaches. I think the players just don't want to play. They like collecting the big money. And remember, Dan Snyder signs the front of the paychecks for these people, not the back.
I will say, I think it would be interesting to see when they do change the name and when eventually people are allowed back at the stadiums, if they're going to turn away people wearing like actual Redskins jerseys.
That's one of the questions.
I don't know. That'd be kind of a tough thing for them to do, to turn a paying customer away.
I think when it comes
Sounds
to
like a class action.
Yeah, no,
it's
I
discrimination. Think. Well, what's wrong with my shirt? There's nothing offensive about my shirt. It's a shirt. Anyway, we're really
go ahead.
So yeah. So final thoughts today. Dwight, you want to start?
Come back to me actually.
All right, Don.
All right. I think I just want to make a brief mention here. So we've got about 109 days left until the election. President Trump made a campaign manager, changed his got rid of Brad Parscale as campaign manager, put in the Stepien guy. I don't know. I mean, my basic thought here is just that if you're the incumbent president running for re-election, and you've got a little over 100 days before the election, and you've replaced your campaign manager from an optic standpoint, I don't think that's a good look. Maybe people didn't like Parscale. I think there's some mixed opinion about him and everything like that. But to me, I just think this underscores some of the problems running within the Trump campaign, and hopefully maybe they'll get these things fixed fast because time is running out.
But if you recall, he did the same thing 4 years ago when he got rid of.
But he wasn't the president.
Kellyanne. I know, but what I'm saying is, it's like
that happened before. Exactly.
It's typical Trump, and it was right around this time too.
Ain't
good.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, Joy.
Good.
Ain't good.
Okay, Mark.
I was going to say I wrote a piece which is up on on the county website, the county club's website, focused on the plan of the Montgomery County public school system for what I call homeschooling light, and that is by going to the virtual or cyber education. What we're really doing is forcing parents to do homeschooling. And one of the things that we've learned from homeschooling in general, and the cyber academies, the charter academies that are online, is that the outcomes are highly dependent on the engagement of parents. And in fact, they have to be active participants. And there's really reason to believe that as a result of this, we're going to see a real increase in the educational disparity in outcomes as parents that have the resources are able to supplement the online education, and those parents that don't will not.
It's a great article. Everyone should go and check it out. Marcus.
I guess some of my thoughts this week were about what's going to go on next week as far as the Republican National Convention. And so we found out that it will still go on. However, it will be scaled down significantly from how it's been in years past. So that's going to be interesting of how it's perceived in the media and how it's what happens on the actual date. We're hopeful. I think everyone's hopeful that the recent increases in a lot of states goes down, including Florida. So I guess we'll see. And I don't know. I sort of feel like I'm not sure how. I mean, in years past, we've had the national conventions broadcast on different networks, and I don't see a Zoom call from Joe Biden. Like, are they really going to broadcast that? That seems a little weird. Are they going to use that as an excuse to not broadcast Trump speaking in front of thousands of people? Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of variables there.
It's going to be really interesting. I wanted to share a really uplifting, amazing story. If you guys haven't seen it yet, look up. His name is Bridger Walker. He's a 6-year-old from Wyoming, and he jumped in front of his sister and was mauled by a dog, attacked by a dog really bad. And the picture is, it's terrible to look at, but he saved his sister. He said, I thought if someone had to die, it should be me. And I mean, if that's not bravery at 6 years old, I mean, it's gotten a lot of attention. Captain America, Chris Evans, is sending him, you know, one of the authentic shields from the movie. I mean, this kid's a hero, and everyone should go check it out because it was beautiful to watch.
He had like 19 stitches or something like that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it looked incredibly painful. But that's one brave child. Dwight, you want to close this out?
Yeah, my final thoughts are on a couple of things this week. Have been kind of one, I want to say, you know, I know the Democrats want to do a virtual convention, and you know, no one's wishing ill on them or anything, but we do understand that, you know, the Democratic Party is much like the 1980s Soviet Polar Bureau, with everyone being like 80 plus years old, you know, and they're in that high risk category. So, you know, I mean, just think kind of a leadership vacuum would happen if, let's say, remember there was a convention in Philadelphia where they all got Legionnaire's disease. It was the American Legion convention. Imagine if...
It's 8:01. I do think I speak on behalf of the entire panel when we also want to say that we have our thoughts and prayers with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We hope that she is recovering well with her chemo, and that she takes the time to truly think about.
And I've got a little bit of advice for Justice Ginsburg. She may want to consider resigning, just because I'll tell you why. Cancer is a tough disease to fight, and being a justice on the Supreme Court, she doesn't need this stress. How old is she? What is she? 75, 80 something? You know, she doesn't need this in her life. Just retire.
Dwight, it always astonishes me. We underestimate just what a humanitarian you are.
I care. Look.
On that note, we will see you next Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks.
See you later.